The 15th edition of the crucial BRICS Economic Summit is underway, and leaders representing almost half of the world's population, including India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, have made their way to South Africa's Johannesburg. At the summit, leaders of the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, will weigh expanding the bloc as some members push to forge it into a counterweight to the West. Heightened global tensions provoked by the Ukraine war and a growing rivalry between China and the United States have added urgency to a drive to strengthen the bloc, which has at times suffered from internal divisions and a lack of coherent vision. One of the leading proponents of expanding BRICS, China's Xi Jinping, was hosted by South Africa for a state visit ahead of the meeting with the grouping's other leaders later in the day. Sitting beside Xi, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the two countries had, quote, similar views regarding expansion. Meanwhile, the bloc represents a quarter of the global economy, and ahead of its three-day summit, there has been a keen interest by others to join the club. Around 20 countries have formally applied to join the bloc. The most interested nations among them are Argentina, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Iran, and Venezuela. Along with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Brazil's Lula da Silva are also attending the summit. Russian President Vladimir Putin, wanted under an international arrest warrant for alleged war crimes in Ukraine, will not travel to South Africa and instead join virtually. And with the arrival of these leaders, there is also a strong buzz of a possible meeting between Indian Prime Minister Modi and China's Xi Jinping. In recent years, the border between China and India has become the site of growing tensions. Chinese aggression has sparked clashes along the mostly rugged mountainous border known as the Line of Actual Control. The situation on the border remains tense due to China's volatile and violation of norms. Beijing and New Delhi are hardening their positions on either side of the line of actual control. However, the recent joint statement after the latest round of talks between the two militaries assumed somewhat a softer tone. As we continue with our coverage of the ongoing BRICS summit, we are now being joined by our correspondent, Kalden Ogmu from Johannesburg. We are also being joined by Adrian Geiges from Hamburg, Germany, who is a writer and author of the biography Xi Jinping, the most powerful man in the world. Both of you, hello. And let's start with our correspondent and an update of what's happening in Johannesburg with this summit. A lot of buzz about a possible meeting between the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping. What are you hearing?
Currently, Susan, I'm at the media center of the BRICS Summit, where the meeting actually for the BRICS Business Leader Forum has started. I'm just jumping in actually from another venue where Prime Minister Narendra Modi was meeting the Indian diaspora. So I'm here where the meeting has started. Everyone is seated at this point of time. But speaking to some of the officials from the Indian side, I did not get a concrete answer from them whether or not there will be a bilateral between Chinese President Xi Jinping and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. However, Chinese side has given a hint that there will possibly be a bilateral meeting, but the Indian officials have said that as the day goes by, they will be able to finalize the schedule for today, and as and when they do that, they should be able to inform the media.
Okay, very exciting. We'll be keeping a close watch. Stay with me, Kalden. We are also being joined by Adrian Geiges from Hamburg, Germany. Adrian, great to see you. You've written a biography on Xi Jinping, and perhaps, we can ask you any question regarding this individual. But ultimately, what is China's goal and perspective at this summit, notably regarding expanding the bloc?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking. Because, BRICS, as you mentioned, it represents nearly half of the world population, 25% of the world economy. But still, there are countries which have very different interests, because the aim of China, especially the aim of Xi Jinping, is to become like the leader of the emerging countries. And that's why he wants to make this BRICS coalition bigger, because he thinks that if there are more countries in the bloc, then maybe the role of India or Brazil might be smaller, and China might become the leader, which again is not very much in the interest of India and other countries. So when we are talking about this expansion of BRICS, it's very much the question, expand to what countries? Whether it will be expanded to countries like, let's say, Venezuela or Iran, who are not very democratic countries and who would be like strong followers of China, or would it be expanded to countries like Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates, which are powerful economic countries, which could make this bloc even stronger to represent the interests of the global South?
Yeah, such a delicate point. I want to go back to our correspondent, Kalden. What can we expect regarding this summit in the short term? What are other leaders hoping to achieve? And then can you just tell us briefly what's on the agenda?
Yes, Susan, basically the summit actually formally, started now for 4 p.m. actually, 4 to 6. There is a schedule that says that there will be a meeting of the BRICS forum, business forum leaders meeting. Thereafter, later, there are statements from the BRICS leaders. Then after that, we are told 6 to 8 p.m. around that time, the leaders will break for retreat. And in that retreat, if you go through the BRICS program, they have the agenda set. They said they will discuss BRICS expansion, global geopolitics, as well as local currency. So that's what's there in the BRICS program as of now.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And Adrian, just coming back to you, we talked about expansion to a certain extent. Do you think the West, led by the United States, is watching this summit closely, thinking that this may be sort of a rival or a counterweight to something like the G7?
Yes, the United States and also Europe for sure are watching this meeting very closely. That's right. But again, it's very much the question, what will be the outcome? Because, the countries who are members of BRICS now or might be joined in the future, this is, as you said, in the discussion right now, they have very different interests. We have to see that India or Brazil are democratic countries with democratic elections, with freedom of press. And China, for example, is not a free country. So it's very much like the ideology of China and Xi Jinping to say there's a common interest of all these countries. Still, I think there are a lot of different opinions and different interests among these countries. We see this in the European Union, which is much closer bloc already together for decades, and still it's very difficult to find a common language even among the European countries. And of course, the world is watching on which points the BRICS countries can find common ground and on which points they cannot find common ground.
Well, thank you so much for that analysis, Adrian Geiges from Hamburg, Germany, and our very own Kalden Mu from Johannesburg. Thanks for that update as well. And of course, Kalden will be talking to you throughout the day and the evening. So keep us posted. Thank you for joining us, both of you.
Thank you for having me.